Good morning, everybody. So today I'm going to show you how to take your wire armature and bulk it out with a little bit of tin foil. Because if you tried to add on just solid Sculpey to all of this body, you would use a lot of Sculpey and it'd end up being really heavy, and that would be more Sculpey than you have for this project. So we're going to use tin foil to kind of flesh out some of those areas and start creating the shapes. So what I tend to do is I will just cut off some smaller pieces of tin foil, and then I crinkle them up and just make a few of those, and then these are what I use to wrap around on my creature, or whatever figure it is I'm making. So when you start adding these on, you want to look for the bulky areas, because you want to add these on to thicker areas. Like you wouldn't want to add any tin foil onto the little paw area. So I'm not going to add any tin foil right here, because once I add on the tin foil and then I add on some of the Sculpey, they would look like they've had like really thick paws. So really the main parts on a bunny that I'm going to be doing the tin foil for I'm going to do the head, I'm going to do the chest and the belly area, and then a little bit on the leg and the thigh. So I'm going to go ahead and start with the belly area. So I'm just going to take this and I'm going to start wrapping it around on my sculpture. So I'm just going to wrap it around like this. When I get towards the bottom, I'll just I know it's a little bit thicker in the middle and towards the bottom than it is at the top, so I'll keep that extra end. Instead of wrapping it all the way back up to the top, I'm just gonna keep it focused more on the bottom. Now the main thing is you wanna kinda squeeze it in there and get it a little bit tight. If it's a floppy all over the place, it's just gonna make adding on your clay a little bit harder. So it works better if you can kinda keep it tight. Now, like I said before, you're not trying to add on a super ton of stuff. So like for me, this is actually pretty good. Like I added in quite a bit of thickness. This would be like, half a block of Sculpey. But really, once I add Sculpey on, it'll be about the same thickness as my drawing. So that's all I need for that bit. Now for this bit, I don't think I'm gonna need a whole piece. So I can always just use a pair of scissors and cut it in half, or you can just tear it. It is just tin foil, so either way is okay. So I'm not gonna add any tin foil right in the joint area. So the main part where I'm gonna bend, I'm not gonna add any tin foil there. I'm just looking at the biggest, thickest areas of the muscles. And if you start adding it on and you're like, wow, that's a buff bunny, or horse, or whatever you're trying to create, you can always cut some more tin foil off. The main thing is to try to make it as close to even as possible on both sides. So here again, I've just added just a little bit on there to kind of help flesh it out. And you want to keep it even. So add on a little bit more onto this side, squish it real good. You don't want it flopping around all the time, because it'll just make it more difficult when you go to add on your clay later. So squeeze it once you got it on there wrapped around, just kind of squeeze it kind of tight. And then check and make sure that they look as even as you can get them. So like this one needs a little bit more squeezing, right? And make sure that the joints can still bend where they need to. So like right here, I've got my two thighs, I've got my belly, and then the same thing for the head. Now you don't want a lot of bulkiness on the back of the head. You just want to bulk out the front, right? So I don't want this part back here to get really thick. I just want this front part to be thicker. So if there's an area where I want one side to be thinner and one side to be thicker, I start in the middle, and this is going to be the back side, and I just kind of flatten it out. So this is skinny on this side. That becomes the back. And then I add on the area in the front. And again, like this is just tin foil, so if you don't like it, take it off and try it again. Or if you're like, oh, that's too much, then cut some off. And if it's not enough, add some more on. So this isn't an exact science, it's just kind of testing it out and seeing, you know, does that look kind of like a bunny head? And if it does, great, leave it. And if it doesn't, then change it. So like I said, depending on what animal it is, you may or may not have more of the foil in some areas than other areas, but just kind of try to get it on there nice and kind of tight. And then once you've got all the thicker areas bulked in, I might add a little teeny bit on the arms right here, but it's not going to be a lot. But once you have the bigger areas bulked in, then it'll be ready for the next step. So just try to make it match your animal as much as you can, whether it's a horse or a rabbit or a fox or anything like that. You're just looking for the thicker areas and bulking those out just a little bit. All right, thanks for watching.